Hey everyone, it's Jeannie here. Today I am joined by the cast of Grown in Gospel, a new reality series on WE TV. I'm joined by Tasha Page Lockhart, Nakia Cole Beach, and Elijah Connor. Thank y'all for joining me.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you for letting us into your life the way you do as well. You know, I started watching some clips of the series, and a lot of times people don't get the inside look into what a pastor's kid's like, or somebody, you know, who grew up with a famous parent in the gospel industry or something like that. So I know it's not easy, but I thank you for that, I gotta say. So let's start here. What does being grown in gospel mean to you? And you can all individually respond however you feel, but what does that mean?
I think being grown in gospel for me means growing up in the church, doing things because growing up you were told to do them. So go to church because you got to go to church because you live in this house. Do this because I said, training your children up in God, which I'm grateful for. But then there comes a time when your life kind of takes a shift and kind of takes a turn, and you start doing it because you actually want to. So I started to develop a relationship with God on my own as I became an adult. And the best way to really understand how much God really, really loves you is to mess up a whole lot. When you mess up a whole lot, you understand he embraces you no matter what.
Oh my God,
and that's what what really drew me closer to God and some of my lowest moments in my life. And so that's what being grown in gospel means to me. I'm unapologetic about my life. I'm not ashamed of my story or my testimony. So I'm grown, but I still love God.
I love that.
That's good, Tasha. I can ditto to that. Of course, being drugged, as my mama say, we were drugged to church pretty much the whole week, not just on Sunday. So I think that it was important for us to go through that, so that way, as we got older, we could see the importance and why they, instilled so much into us and, scolded us, whatever they had to do to try to let it be known, so that now that we're older, now we have more appreciation as to why we need to, make it known the gospel and how we got overcome our struggles and our challenges, but then knowing that God got us no matter what. So we had to see that for ourselves. So that's why I'm like, yeah, I'm grown, definitely grown, standing it now.
I remind you of the scripture that says, train up a child in the way he should go.
That's it.
And when he gets older, he won't depart. Maybe. But I don't think I've departed. And a lot of times people think that just because you're singing R&B or secular music that you are not honoring God. I feel a way of, I sing about love, and God is love. And I feel there is a different way to give Jesus to people. You know what I mean? A lot of times, if you're walking by in church and you can speak in tongues and do all this, but you can't even speak to me, something's wrong here. So we got to find the balance. And I'm all about relationship. Just because you don't go to church, your job may not allow you to go to church. You may be a nurse that works on Sundays. That's part of your shift. You know what I mean? So it's really, at the end of the day, it's about relationships. So growing in gospel means, guess what? I'm grown. I still don't have it right all the way, but I'm trying to figure it out because gospel is my roots. And that's what I know is to honor God.
I love that you said that, because sometimes, and I hate that this is a reality, but sometimes I find that the most spirit-filled churches are the ones where you see are moving in the spirit. Sometimes the meanest. I'm like, why are y'all so mean?
Yeah.
So, and I'm glad you said that, because there is that relational aspect that sometimes is missing when you're moving and operating in that way. And it shouldn't be that way. I'm a pastor's wife. I definitely wasn't a pastor's kid.
God bless you, First Lady.
That's what we getting out.
God bless you, First Lady, giving out the fragrance of this house. Absolutely.
That subject right there is very near and dear to my heart, because I was married to a bishop, and going through what I went through and experiencing what I did at that church, I had said to myself, I would never step foot in another church ever again after my experience there. I have never been treated as bad by the church, talked about, criticized, ridiculed. The way they did me, I've never seen it before. And I grew up in church my whole life. And it was really heartbreaking and devastating. And a lot of the stuff he allowed to happen. And so you're going to see a lot of this stuff play out on the show. We're going to talk about it. But I just wanted to say that I love you. And I can see that you're happy. You have a smile on your face and that God has graced you to be able to do what you're doing. And so even sometimes when you may not feel seen, I see you. So I had to say that to you, because from one ex-first lady to somebody that's still doing it. You had enough courage to stick in there. I couldn't do it. And I don't know if I ever want to be married to a pastor again. It was just a lot. So you're going to see a lot of this on the show. You're going to see all of it on the show.
And that's real, that's real. And I appreciate you. And thank you for saying that, it isn't easy. It's definitely hard. I'm a little unconventional because I didn't grow up in the church. So, I had a legit conversion. And so I don't do anything by the book of the world. I try to stick to the Bible, you know what I mean? So for me, it is all about relationships. So I really appreciated what you said, both all of you guys. I can just tell it's just real. And that's what we need more of. Talk about a little bit more of that. Like, what are people going to get from the show? So Elijah, I'm going to shout you out real quick. In the trailer, they use a risky line that you say, and immediately, people are going to be like, oh no, this is not going to be glorifying to God. This is not going to be. So let's kind of talk to that. Cause I've been watching clips and I know that that's actually not the case. So,
Absolutely.
well, what can viewers expect?
You're talking about that risky line when I was at the radio station.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I'm going back to, well, of course, with reality TV, there's editing. So there was a conversation before that where I was actually talking about what we touched on, which was, actually, no, that was the other interview. I guess we didn't say it on here. When I was talking about, when people are, or married couples or whoever are consummating their marriage night or whatever, they don't want to listen to Amazing Grace. So somebody has to give them the soundtrack. I sing about love. And like I said, God is love. And at the end of the day, Bishop T.D. Jakes put out a love album, a relationship album. You know what I mean? Things in that nature. Hey, no more sheets, huh?
I agree. Listen, as a pastor's wife, I agree. God made sex and he made it for us. He made it for the believers, in marriage. So I'm with you on that. But I wanted to kind of just address it because I know people can see the trailer and they might just be turned off. So
absolutely. And I get it. And that's why I wanted to clarify that, because, we also have to keep in mind of where culture is today. If you have kids, a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, or 12-year-old, when I was growing up, that was taboo, but this day and age, you better talk to your kids before the school does, because the school been transformed something totally different, So, like I said, this show is for everybody. I don't want people to feel like, I hadn't grown up in church. I wasn't there every Sunday. I didn't go to Sunday school. I didn't have to be at YPWW. I didn't have to be in choir.
Young people's willing work.
I wasn't part of Sunshine Band, so I may not understand it. There's something on here for everybody that you're going to laugh. You're going to cry. You're going to, I think relationships are going to be healed from this as well, with parents, with husbands, with wives, with friends. So, one thing I want to say is that, the pandemic, I think it impacted the whole world. And one of the reasons why I did this show was because I feel like TV is still one of the outlets that reaches not only the world, but nations. And I think the pandemic taught us, how can I touch people without touching them? Still, people don't want to be touched. There's people who don't want to go to church. Touch your neighbor. No, they don't want to hear that. Grab your neighbor's hand. They don't want to hear that. How can I touch people without touching them? You know how? Through TV. They can sit on their couch at home and still get a message. And a lot of times, God said, I'll even use a child. He used a donkey in the Bible.
Right.
You know what I mean? So clearly, if you use a donkey, you can get something by watching this show on TV, whether it's being encouraged or just feeling like, you know what? I was going to commit suicide because I dealt with that same issue, but you know what? I feel like I can go on. Nikki's story, I feel, is going to impact so many people around the world.
Absolutely.
As well as Tasha's, and just to mention some of the other cast, Brianne Hammond, Fred Hammond's daughter, Shayna Wilson Williams, Jay Brooks. You heard of Commission, his dad, start a commission. So I just want to encourage everybody,
Yeah.
and show them how I didn't give up and how I took a no that was thrown my way and looked at it as new opportunity, as well as no backwards means on. And clearly I'm on because I'm sitting here with you having an interview.
Mm.
Oh,
Um,
right.
Nikki, I want to ask you because you're sitting there quiet and beautiful.
I know,
So
trying to get into this feel of this.
You got it.
I so I'm also a pastor's wife, but I also have my son now, and I often I'm like, I don't want to mess my kid up. You know what I mean? Like ultimately God gave me this child and he, I want to be able to raise him in the Lord, but also not turn him away from the Lord. So
Right.
can you kind of share what are some of the things that maybe families do wrong who raise their kid up in the church and some things that they do right?
That's good. I think that it's about the foundation of, like, of course, with my mother, what she inputted, instilled in me. I think it was just, just the extra residue of what I gotten, and then I had to, pour it onto my kids. I think it's important with the society and the way social media is dealing these days. And then of course, bullying. I think it's just important to like keep things fun when it comes to church. Children's church, it used to be turned up in our days. And it's like they don't have it nowadays in church, some churches, it's kind of like obsolete, whatever. But I just think that just instilling that and then encouraging them to let them know, like, look, your mom been through a lot, but I'm going to do my best to make sure that you don't go make the same mistakes that I made. So I think it's about balance, and it's about just making sure that your children are around positive things and, godly things as well. But then I don't want to, put them in a box. Just it's always good to have an outlet.
I want to touch on something, something you said, what not to do.
Yes.
Our parents put a lot in us and they showed us the way. And I'm grateful for that seed of righteousness that was placed inside of me, because without that, I don't think I would be able to make it back from drug addiction.
Mm.
And, some of the things I got myself caught up in. But when you talk about parenting, growing up in the church, what not to do is don't cut your children off when they're trying to communicate with you. Listen to your children, even when they're saying something you may not agree with. Because growing up in the church, and we grew up in a strict households of, we all grew up Kojic, and that's, if you don't know what Kojic is, that's the grand old Church of God in Christ.
You can't join.
You got to be born. And I'm grateful for my upbringing, but in some of our households, the moment you start saying something they don't agree with, the blood of Jesus, not in this house, and I'm just trying to express myself.
Yes.
And so what that did was, because I wasn't able to express myself in our household, I went out into the streets where the drug dealers and everybody else, they was letting me express myself. Oh, we like her.
And
You're a church girl. You know what I'm saying? So I drew in close to that. And it's a lot I learned sitting in trap houses talking to OGs, and I use some of the tips and stuff they gave me to this day. But that made me relatable. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not afraid to go and talk to prostitutes, pimps, drug addicts, homeless people out on the street. I approach those type of people. I draw those kinds of people. So that may not be your ministry, but it's mine. But going back to my original point, listen to your children and let them express themselves.
Beyonce sings a song called "Listen."
Vitally important.
Absolutely.
I get it. So we have to
the song here in my heart.
We have to wrap up, but I did want to say, is there what's just one thing that you want to make sure viewers walk away with from watching Growing in Gospel? Then we'll wrap up
by watching this show.
Talking about they learn how to dress. I want them to walk away by watching the show and looking at my story, is that don't ever be ashamed of where you come from.
Yes.
Don't ever be ashamed of the mistakes that you've made and the decisions that you've made. And that if you still have breath in your body, you have a chance to do it again and get it right. I've mastered getting it wrong. Now it's time to get it right.
And then, as well as, we hear the cliche all the time about you are who you hang around. It's okay to push your friends to greatness, even if they don't see it. You may see greatness in one of your friends that they may not even seen themselves already. They may not have seen yet, so they may get upset at you at the moment, but once they finally look and say, you know what, I appreciate that push. I'm the type, I don't want yes people around me.
Right.
If I got something on, hey, does this look good? Oh yes. No, I want you to tell me the truth, because guess what? When I go out there, somebody gonna say it. You know, so that's what I want to get. I want people to get from this, as well as that. Guess what? We're not perfect. We're still getting it right every day, trying to get it right. The difference between us is it's being played out on TV. You
And
know,
you can relate to every last one of our storylines. Like, it's just something that we deal with, that is life, you know, outside of the church walls, we're dealing with life issues. So you're gonna see a lot of good stuff.
this is an organic show, which
Yes.
separates us from other reality shows that may be out there.
Totally.
So we
Yeah.
said all of that to say Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
In closing,
You're gonna be doing. You're gonna be sitting in front of your TV watching Grown and what?
gospel.
Gospel.
Get a seat in your hand, something that's indicative.
The doors of the church are